Hi guys. Today's teaching is not going to seem like at first that it has anything to do with my last video about that bread and fish, but I think you will see that it does if you bear with me. I will also take you back to the manna in the wilderness because there is an important message there, and I will be talking a lot more about the bread and fish before we even move on here on my channel. Next time, we can go over all of John chapter 6 in more depth and go back to that first miraculous catch of the fishes in Luke chapter 5 too, because it's all part of it. While I think most understand the basic gospel message of what it means to walk with Christ, there is so much more to it all. And one of the things that you must get under your belt to see the deeper story we are being told is knowing what the bread and fish represent. After all, it was the age of Pisces, the two fish, and the church age, and the fishers of men. The symbolism that is used in the Bible does not really change from chapter to chapter or gospel to gospel, and there is a load of symbolism if you want to go deep. If you are serious about the Word and really seeking to be able to pick up the Word on your own and find yourself lost in a whole new world of understanding, then subscribe. Hit the thumbs up so my vids will be in your feed, and hang out with me a bit. That's what the thumbs up button does for you. It tells YouTube which vids to put in your feed. So anyway, you know the saying, give a man a fish and he eats for a day, but teach a man to fish and he will eat for a lifetime. And there's another saying that is one of my favorites, and that is, only fools rush in. So we take it slow, one step at a time. Today, I'm mostly popping on to let you know that we are done entertaining the pet goats, which is not something I've ever done on my channel, but the 13 years is over. It's time to send the pet goats into the wilderness because Azazel awaits. The biblical years are counted as 360 days, and we learn that in the Bible. Like those 1260 days is 3.5 years, or 42 months with 30 days per month. This 360 thing is because it is once around the block, so to speak. 360 degrees, making a complete circuit. It's also the number of feet to get around those bases of a baseball diamond. And even when you hit the ball clear out of the park, you still have to run those bases. 360 feet to get back to home plate. So, right after realizing that the 13 biblical years of the pet goats ended on the Jewish Resurrection Day of 2025, and that is no accident, but I got another message. So the message reads, they don't know who the puppets really are. Stick a fork in them, they are done. Well, y'all admit I got a big laugh out of. Just a word of advice about all these cartoons and movies and stuff that people will be trying to entertain you with for 1,000,000 hours. There's enough to learn as it is, so don't fill your bellies full of the junk food out there. Most people sense that we are at the end of the game, the end of this current reality. God is playing the long game. It's why my timeline is jam-packed and 10 feet long. Most people are not aware of who the players really are, or who it is that is really being played here. Although many of the rulers are getting played if they aren't staying on their toes or are completely oblivious. But ultimately, it's the pet goats who are getting played. And the final sorting of the sheep and the goats has been happening for quite a while now. And the 13 biblical years of 4,680 days ended on the Jewish Resurrection Day this year, April 16th of 2025, or Nisan 18. You can see from the scientific calendar here that Nisan 18 was Resurrection Sunday morning. And I don't care what calendar you are looking at. Jesus was crucified on Nisan 14 and went into the tomb at sundown. He resurrected sometime after sundown of Nisan 17 and before sunrise of Nisan 18. The way the Jews count the days, sundown on Nisan 17 really starts the date of Nisan 18. But Jesus was crucified in 30 AD, and Nisan 18 that year was Resurrection Sunday morning. And as you can see, on our calendars, he resurrected after sundown of April 8th. It is what the Third Great American Eclipse was marking. April 8th of last year marked Resurrection Night in 30 AD. It gives us the year of the crucifixion. I have a lot of videos about all this stuff, but April 8th date is also the current star date on God's clock of the birth of John the Baptist. JB was born on 313 of 3 BC, but because of the precession of the earth, that date would now be April 8th. So that eclipse was marking two things: the birth of John the Baptist and the resurrection date. And John proves all this out with some other things too, such as the race of the 1600 furlongs, which he connects with the date of the baptism and the blood moon that we just had this year on 3/13 at 2 minutes to midnight. It is a double confirmation, a second witness, so to speak. So we can be sure of the timeline that we are looking at. And I'll go into all that in a video soon. I think I posted it a while back on my YouTube wall and over at Patreon. There is just a load of associations to the number 313 and the number 13, and a long list of things that are connected to those numbers. I mean, even the Greek word in Strong's for 313 means born again. So everyone knows how important that number 13 really is. The Last Supper was also the 13th day, as we are looking for our Last Supper here too. And then, right after the Last Supper, Jesus was arrested in the garden and thrown out. That was after darkness fell upon the world. And looking at Young's literal translation here of the Gospel of Luke, it is written in chapter 22, verse 52 and 53. And Jesus said to those having come upon him, chief priests and magistrates of the temple, and elders, as upon a robber have ye come forth with swords and sticks? While daily I was with you in the temple, ye did stretch forth no hands against me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. These were Jesus' final words in the garden that Luke, for the children of the light, wants us to know. That Jesus was trying to show them all, these chief priests and magistrates of the temple and the elders of the temple, that what they were doing at that very moment, this is the power of darkness. I'm sure if any of you have ever been up against a true narcissist who is in the middle of one of their abusive, twisted games with you, and they are pushing your buttons like they are playing a grand piano, and you just want to scream at them those same words, this, what you are doing at this very moment is the true power of darkness. It is this kind of desperate desire to get someone to really see the demons within their own hearts. But it is something that can never be fixed with people who are truly broken. And this is what was going on with the whole religion of the temple in Jerusalem and all the corruption. Jesus wanted them to really see themselves for who and what they really were, and what was about to happen to them. Not to him, but to them. Because in a way, God had set a dead man switch for the Jews. You pull the trigger on my son, and you all die, and you will never live again. And Jesus was very clear in John 14:6 when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Jesus is serious about what he's saying. Those are the rules. There are many such statements in the New Testament. And because I don't know God's thoughts and plans, I'm not sticking my neck out to say that no other mansions could possibly exist out there. But if you wish to enter New Jerusalem, you need to know the rules. And you have to understand that it is by faith and faith alone. And there is only one door, and Jesus has the keys. Did Jesus say he would bend the rules for anyone? And I think when you have the rules fast in your mind, and what Jesus really had to say in a few places in the Gospels, especially his last words to the apostles when he came to them for a second time in the upper room, which can be symbolic of heaven, the upper rooms in the Bible. And what he told them all at the end of John's Gospel, chapter 20, it will make the understanding of the war in heaven so much simpler when we get to that part. Jesus told them all, Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. just know that the inhabitants of New Jerusalem, as well as the walls and foundations, will be built on faith and faith alone in Jesus Christ. And as Jesus sends out his messages in the letters of Revelation, he that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. And to him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. It's why people can't understand what those fish really represent, because they don't see how John's chapter 21 can make any sense at all. And if it happened only days or weeks after the resurrection, 2,000 years ago, what were these men doing out fishing? As if they had just forgotten about the task ahead of them. It was as if they were all just lost. And where was Jesus all that time? I mean, he had just resurrected, and they all had a massive job to do. So, the book of Acts is true. Jesus spent 40 days with them as soon as he resurrected. And because of what Jesus said about John simply tarrying, why would the other apostles think that John might die before Jesus returned at Pentecost, just a few weeks away, when John was only in his early 20s at that time? And then Jesus telling Peter to mind his own business, when Peter was acting miffed that he had some sort of task to do, and wondering what John was going to be doing. No, Peter would have never dared to speak to Jesus that way after what he had just done to Jesus at the trial, where they decided to just murder him. And Peter sat there with the Romans denying even knowing Jesus 3 times, because he was hoping to save his own skin and maybe get a cushy spot with the Pharisees. I mean, it's what the whole scene at the Last Supper was all about between him and Jesus. I guess it's just really beyond my comprehension that after 2,000 years, no one seems to understand what John chapter 21 is really all about. Well, it's because they don't understand what the fish represent. Or maybe people don't really believe that John was shown the future at all. Perhaps they just throw the book of Revelation right out the window, too. So, back to I, Pet Goat 2. And the 13 biblical years, which is an exact day count of 4,680 days. And it is the exact day count from the official release date of this cartoon that was made back in 2012 to Resurrection Day of 2025. The cartoon is mostly concerning events that started on 9/11 in 2001. It's what started the story, right? I've put out a lot of proofs to show you that Jesus' original birth date on our calendars was 9/11 of 3 BC. The trumpets for Rosh Hashanah were blown at sundown to begin 9/11 that year. And Mary went into labor, and Jesus was born sometime during that night. You know, the wee hours of 9/11. Rosh Hashanah is the day of the year when if the Jews have a new king, they blow the trumpets also to herald the new king. But do you honestly think that little Georgie Bush reading I Pet Goat and the class of little kids chanting something about kites and steel right when the 9/11 event was happening was some sort of coincidence? No, all of this stuff was set up long ago by people who do know the truth about what's happening here. Oh, there are some people who still believe that what the news was saying about how 9/11 all went down that day is 100% true. I'm sure they also believe in magic bullets when JFK was gunned down in broad daylight. You do know that one of the big conspirators in that crime stepped into the office of POTUS that day. Yeah, he was from Johnson City, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and that area where the storms were wiping everything out in central Texas on the 4th of July this year. That's where he was from. Oh, they are still cleaning up that mess. Both messes, really. And I can assure you that God has his players in the game as well. Be careful about all these things that you believe are predictive programming or hold all the secrets that will forever distract you from God's Word. God is watching everyone, so I'm sure He knows how many hours everyone spends on YouTube videos and studying and meditating on His Word. You cannot imagine the ways in which people are being tested right now, and have been for a long time. God wants to make sure at this point, before He begins again, that He is taking the cream of the crop. Jesus warned that it would be like the days of Noah, when only 8 people boarded that ark, and Noah was found perfect in his generation. The main harvest has been going on for 2,000 years. So if people want to talk about a harvest model, I'm sure that the first fruits of the fields were the Jews that Jesus was able to bring into the new covenant before his ascension. We are at the end of the world right now, and this world is getting very dark. You know, darkness is falling. So our main concern is that we are filled with light and not left stumbling in the dark and getting our toes caught in stupid traps that have been set. We want to make sure that our lights are shining so bright in the darkness that the reapers do not mistake us for the tares that they are binding in the fields to burn. We want God to know that we are the finest specimens in the fields, and that He can feel confident in seeding His new Eden with us. What I'm saying is, don't fill your bellies with junk food, and never truly feasting on all that bread and fish of Jesus, and ever thirsting for His Word. So, about that manna in the wilderness, or rather the bread and fish of Jesus, don't take more than you can digest in one day. Otherwise, it will simply spoil and the worms will get it. And while so many are running all over YouTube, thinking they are gathering manna from heaven or filling their nets to bursting with what they think is bread and fish, be careful out there. A lot of that manna on the dusty desert floor is easily confused with yesterday's quail poop. Much like Moses and that manna in Exodus chapter 16. When you get an assignment from your college professors on Fridays, he expects that you will have the whole weekend to study. So take notes and take a double portion. And instead of partying with friends all weekend and getting drunk and spending Sunday nursing that hangover, spend your time off studying your notes and taking more notes on all that you have learned while going over your assignments. I learned pretty quick that it was the only way that I was ever going to make it out of college alive. Try not to sweat it. Some will take a little and some will take a lot. And it will be exactly what they can consume in one day. And they gathered every man according to his eating. Take some for your friends and family as well. Just find the time to sit and enjoy and meditate on your manna from heaven. And give yourself all the time you need to digest it all. And don't worry so much about all that junk food out there laying in the desert in the darkness.